Baruch Hashem, with Hashem's help, Bava Metzia 20a, Mishnah, if one finds deeds of valuation, deeds in which valuation of a debtor's property by a court of law for the purpose of assigning it to a creditor is recorded, deeds of maintenance, or deeds in which the court records a man's undertaking to provide maintenance for his stepdaughter, documents of chalitza, documents testifying that the ceremony of pulling off the shoe has been performed in the case of a childless widow whose brother-in-law refuses to perform the Levirate marriage, Devarim 25:5, and thus enabling her widow to remarry, or refusal, a fatherless girl, orphan, whose mother or brother gave her in marriage while still a minor to accept the husband, that when she attains her majority, her declaration before the court that she does not desire the man as the husband sets her free, and the court writes a document recording the refusal which entitles her to marry another man. Documents of Burin relating to selection of arbiters by contending parties as explained in the Gemara below, or another document issued by the court of law, one shall return them. In cases where there is no reason to apprehend the writers of the documents may have changed their mind in handing them over, the court of law would not have executed them unless the transactions were completed, nor is there any ground to question the validity of the documents in case which they have been paid. If one finds the documents in a small bag or in a case in which form distinguishing marks, or if one finds them in a roll or a bundle, see Gemara below, or documents of one shall return them. They are identified by the person that lost it. And how many documents constitute a bundle? 3 fastened together. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says if they belong to one person who borrowed from 3 lenders, one shall return them to the borrower, as it is obvious that the borrower had them in possession and fastened them together before losing them. It may therefore be assumed that they were paid bills. If they belong to 3 people who borrowed from one lender, one shall return them to the lender, as this makes it clear that it was the lender who had them in his possession and fastened them together before losing them. The assumption, therefore, is they have not been paid. If one finds a document on one's papers and does not know it came there, the reference is to note of indebtedness found among other documents, the owner not being able to remember whether they were deposited with him by the borrower or lender, whether it was partly paid or not. It shall remain with him until Eliyahu comes, for all time until the truth is ascertained. If there are notes of cancellation among them, if there are any notes attached to the documents showing that the debts referred to the documents have been paid or canceled, one must abide by the contents of the notes, i.e. the debts referred to the documents are assumed to have been paid, and all the notes of cancellation receipts have been held by the borrower, if assumed that the lender would have merely have result of neglect or forgetfulness. Gemara, what are documents of Burim? Here in Babylonia, it has been interpreted as meaning documents containing records of pleadings, litigants of court of law, baror, to make clear. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, documents stating the party whose one judged, and that party shall judge. Documents according to the choice of judges contending party to decide their case from baror, select to choose, Sanhedrin 23a. Or any other deed issued by a court of law, one shall return. In the court of Rav Huna, there was once found a bill of divorcement endorsed by the court get in Shawire, the town in which is situated by the canal Rakis, said Rav Huna. Bava Metzia 20b continuing, we apprehend that there may be 2 towns called Shawire. Rav Chizda said to Rav, go and consider carefully, for in the evening Rav Huna will ask you about it. So we went and examined it, and he found we learned any deed issued by a court of law, one shall return. The notes. Rab Amram said to Rabbah, how does a master drive a law relating to the religious prohibition from the civil court? The sentence quoted from the Mishnah, the reference is obviously to the document regarding the commercial transactions and similar matters failing within the scope of civil law, while the question of validity of the divorce is one ultimately affecting a moral or religious issue. One may not derive one from the other. Rabbi answered them, idle talker, one who talks foolishly. The Mishnah taught this law also in regard to documents of chalitza and refusal. These are matters of religious law like marriage and divorce. whereupon the cedar column of the college split in two. This was regarded as a protest against the incident just described. One said, Rav Amram, "It is split because of my lot, I because of the insulting remark addressed to him by Rabbah." And the other, Rabbah, said, "It is split because of my lot, because of the way in which Rav Amram tried to refute him in public." If one finds documents in a small bag or in a case, what is kafisa? The word used in the Mishnah is translating to small bag. Hafisa. Rabbi Bar Hana said a small bag. What is deluxma? The word spelled Mishnah relating to the case, receptacle. Rabbi Bar Shmuel said a case used by old people, a roll of documents, of a bundle of documents, etc. The rabbis taught how many documents constitute a roll, 3 rolled together. This regarded a distinguishing mark by which a loser may identify the documents which they are advertised by the finder. The finder would just announce that they found the certain documents, and the people came forward to claim that they state the number and manner in which they are rolled up. How much constitute a bundle, 3 tied together, we will deduce from the knot as a distinguishing mark. The definition of a bundle for 3 fastened together. Now behold, Rav Kiza taught 3, if so, is it the same as a roll, implying it is rolled together, a bundle made of documents placed on top of one another and then rolled together. What does the finder announce? And the documents found, when he advertises the find, he mentions the number of documents in the roll to claim. This applies to the Mishnah. But as Rabbina says, he announces he found coins. Here he announces he found documents. Without stating the number, the loser has to state the purpose of identification when he comes to claim the coins. Without stating the number, the loser has a way to know how many documents were there. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, if they return to a person who borrowed from 3, you shall return them to the borrower. For if you were to assume that they belong to the lenders, but the documents come together, but not the lenders have gone with them to the clerk of court to have them endorsed, they were already endorsed, and the clerk may have rolled them together and lost them. People do not leave their endorsed documents with the clerk. If they belong to 3 persons who borrowed from one lender, one shall return them to the lender, etc. For if you assume that they belong to the borrowers, how did the documents come together? Who received the documents back after paying their debts, but not the people mentioned the documents of the borrowers have gone to the clerk to have them written. They were written in 3 different handwritings. And the clerk lost them after writing them, so they were not used at all and the money was lent. But not the borrowers have gone with the clerk of court to have them endorsed. The lender gets his documents endorsed, but not the borrower. If there were notes of cancellation among them, one must abide by the content of the note. Rabbi Yirmiyah B. Abba said in the name of Rav, a note of cancellation, agreement, provision for the cancellation of a contract under certain conditions. This is produced by the lender, even if it was written in his own hand. It is merely as a prank and is invalid. This is so not only when written by a scribe, in which case it may be that the scribe happened to meet the lender and write the note. So the lender might have already, when the borrower would call to pay and ask for a receipt. But even if it was his own handwriting, showing the lender was able to write, there was no reason why it would have written before the borrower paid the debt. But even his own handwriting, it is invalid, for we assume he wrote the note thinking the borrower may come to the desk and pay me, and if not, I will give him the note of cancellation, and he will not give me the money. I shall write the note now, and when he brings me the money, I will give it to him. Notes of cancellation are found among them, and one should abide by the contents of the notes. And it is obvious here that the lender who produces the notes of cancellation, for it is he who found them among the notes of indebtedness in his possession. And Rabbi Safra said, if one found torn documents, a bill of cancellation relates with found intact among torn documents, which shows that the cancellation is genuine, and otherwise the bill would have been placed among the torn notes of indebtedness. According to Rashi's second explanation, notes of cancellation were found torn among the torn documents held by the lender, and the fact that it was among the useless documents showed that the borrower just left it with the lender after paying him and later discarded it and put it with other useless papers. The lender had written it for the purpose of having it ready when acquired and would not have put it among his useless papers. Coming here, if one found the documents, a note of stating the notes of indebtedness of Rav Yosef ben Shimon, who paid, and there were two debtors bearing that name, the notes of the debtors are deemed to have been paid, as each of them can claim to be the person named in the receipt. Bava Metzia 172a. This proves the notes of cancellation in the possession of the lender is valid. Rav Safra Rokisha. Rav Safra said it was among the torn documents, so there would also be found among the torn documents. Come here, we swear that our Father has not instructed us to say anything to us, and that we have not found any note among the documents to affect the note of indebtedness having been paid. Rav Safra answered, Shavuos 45a, the oath has been taken by the orphans wishing to collect the debts due to their father. From the text of the oath, it appears that the notes of cancellation found among the lender's documents, it's valid and contradicts the previous teaching that the notes of cancellation produced the lender is invalid. Coming here, note of cancellation which bears the signatures of witnesses corroborated by signatories. See 931a. This refers to note of cancellation possession of the lender who denies having been paid, as is proved by the fact that he did not surrender it to the lender. The lender is not believed to have witnesses who signed the note testify and sign that they were unable to testify that whether the debt was paid. Otherwise, the lender is believed. This proves in this case that the note of cancellation in the possession of the lender is considered valid. Say it must be corroborated through evidence of the signatories.